Hello and welcome to Reporters here on France 24. In this week's edition, we take a look at the voting system within the United States. Whether it's calls to scrap mail-in or early voting, strict ID requirements, or barriers to voter registration, political parties have always used voter suppression and different methods to stack the odds in their favour. Nowhere is that perhaps more true than in Ohio. Once the definition of a swing state, Ohio's electoral map, is becoming increasingly more red, despite Republicans outnumbering Democrats by just 2%. The increase in red victories is in part down to a process called gerrymandering, a practice in which the electoral map is redrawn every 10 years in order to better reflect population changes. But often, it's the party in charge who oversees the remapping, giving them a chance to put their thumb on the scale in future elections. Well, France 24's Fanny Allard was in Ohio to see the real-world effects gerrymandering has. She joins me now. Fanny, thank you so much for joining us here on France 24. The practice of gerrymandering is nothing new. It's been around almost as long as the American Republic. But where does it come from?
Well, as you said, gerrymandering means manipulating the redrawing of legislative district lines to favor one party or the other in the United States, Democrats or Republicans. The term itself, gerrymander, originated from the 19th century. It was first used just right before the 1811 presidential election, when then-Governor Elbridge Gerry manipulated the map of a county in Massachusetts. He had the map redrawn to favor his party. It created a controversy, and newspapers published a caricature in the form of a salamander. So gerrymander is therefore a portmanteau word composed of gerry for the name of the governor and mander for salamander. This tells us one thing: this undemocratic practice has been going on for more than 2 centuries and is not ending anytime soon, as you're going to see in this report.
Well, without further ado, let's watch that report. This is Ohio, Democracy in Peril on Reporters.
This is one of Ohio's smallest counties. It's one of its poorest counties.
Ohio and its nearly 12 million residents were once the archetype of a swing state, with just a slim majority of Ohioans identifying as Republican. But recent election cycles have gone solidly red.
Yes, you have an election and everyone votes, but because of all the districts are drawn the way they are, we all know the outcome before the election even happens, and that just happened in Ohio. And there's very little the voters can do about it. The elections are all predetermined. It's just a broken system.
David Pepper, a former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party, wants to fix this broken system. And his main target is gerrymandering, a political practice almost as old as the U.S. democracy. The idea is to redraw voting districts in a way that favors one party. The town of Manchester in southern Ohio is an example of the consequences of gerrymandering on local communities.
This is the entrance to Manchester, Ohio. A town that's been here for, over a century. This is what it looks like when you enter. The people in Columbus literally are taking money from towns like this to give tax cuts to very wealthy people instead of investing in what would help turn towns like this around. It's just maddening.
Over the past decade, funding for local governments has been cut by an estimated $1 billion a year adjusted for inflation. Cuts that have had a direct impact on local services like schools, the police, hospitals, or infrastructure.
What did everything here look like 40 years ago? Were all these buildings filled in?
Yes, yes. That little building over there was a jewelry store. Mm-hmm. This is a newer building, and then there was a market, a meat market, grocery here. And a dry cleaner used to be there.
In Manchester, budget cuts were coupled with the closure in 2018 of 2 nearby coal-fired plants. Since then, state lawmakers have not voted for any major investments in the region.
The reason this town says so much about democracy is the people of this town, a few years ago, so frustrated by what was happening here, called their state senator to have a meeting to talk about what he could do to help them. And the state senator, after hearing their worries, said to them, well, sometimes you just have to move. And that tells you everything, because the politicians around here in a gerrymandered world, never worry about getting reelected.
In short, no matter how little they achieve, elected officials are not worried they'll be voted out of office.
If we saw this in another country, we would understand it as an attack on democracy. But because it's America and we're so proud of our democracy, we don't see it that way.
In Washington, D.C., partisan redistricting is a well-known practice. Whit Ayers has been advising Republicans for nearly 40 years. He believes gerrymandering is an integral part of U.S. politics.
We have had gerrymandering ever since we have had a constitutional republic. It's not confined to one party or the other. The reason you found Democrats frustrated in Ohio is the Republicans are in charge of Ohio. But I guarantee you, if you go to New York or California or Illinois, where the Democrats are in charge, you will find many Republicans who are upset because they are enhancing the chances of Democratic politicians at the expense of Republicans in those states.
Districts across the country are redrawn every 10 years to take into account changes in population. But it also allows one party to choose its voters based on social, religious, or racial criteria. And while both sides are guilty of gerrymandering, Republicans have been more effective at it. In 2010, they launched RedMap, a project aimed at increasing Republican control in states like Ohio.
In 2010, Republicans made a major effort to elect a lot of people to state legislatures. It's the state legislatures that draw the congressional maps. And so because Republicans were so successful, Republicans are in a better position, and have been for the last 10 years, to draw the congressional maps. So in that sense, there are more Republican gerrymanders than Democratic gerrymanders.
Since 2010, Republicans have also relied on previously unavailable mapping software, which has allowed them to strategically redraw districts with unprecedented precision.
You see all these really unusual shapes. That's because the mappers were able to use big data, so really understand the voting tendencies of voters down to the household. And so they are cutting, they're slicing and dicing counties and local communities, local cities, simply to secure a Republican advantage that otherwise would not be there. For example, much of Cincinnati could have been kept whole, but they split it in half so that they can basically dilute the voices of Democratic voters. These kinds of shapes tell us that they were trying to pick house by house, voter by voter, who went in what district.
In 2021, the League of Women Voters of Ohio filed 2 lawsuits challenging the state's gerrymandered maps. Though the Ohio Supreme Court struck down Republican-drawn maps several times, the ruling came too late for the 2022 midterm elections, allowing Republicans to expand their supermajority in the state legislature.
Results as of the 8th.
Yep.
House 64-35, Senate 25-8.
Senate. So shockingly got so much worse. Even though the Ohio Supreme Court found that these maps were unconstitutional over and over again, we have a situation where the people of Ohio are facing more, not less, partisan gerrymandering in the Ohio State House. And it's easy to focus on Congress because they make federal laws, but here in Ohio, the Ohio State House is making decisions on voting access, abortion access, the rights of LGBTQ youth. There's so many things that the Ohio House and the Ohio Senate decide that affects the daily lives of Ohioans.
That's true for the transgender community, which has been the target of several bills. One bill tried to ban transgender girls from playing on their school's female sports teams. Ember Zelch is the first and only transgender girl approved to play varsity softball in Ohio.
These are my uniforms for my summer team. We mix and match the colors. I just personally really like the green and the black all together.
When puberty hit, Ember could not stand her changing voice and stopped talking for 2 years. But she found comfort in team sports.
I love it, being able to have the community and the safe space and the friends that I've made and feeling comfortable and confident.
Before joining the team, she had to go through a series of tests to prove her physical abilities were not unfairly superior to other girls her age. The thought of being banned from the team angers her.
A lot of us didn't want to put them there, and they ended up there anyway. Because our votes were distributed in a way via gerrymandering that we weren't counted realistically with accurate representation to the entirety of Ohio's population.
Out of the hundreds of thousands of Ohio students, only a dozen transgender girls have been part of athletic teams in middle or high school. The bill banning transgender kids from school teams failed in December, but for Ember's mother, it's just one example of a broader conservative push.
In this country right now, there's a big push from extremely conservative Christian organizations to push through all this anti-transgender legislation. It's absolutely infuriating to know that our tax dollars are going to pay for this legislation that basically is legal discrimination, and that we're not even being slightly represented. At the state level, our current senator and representative have both been sponsoring and supporting some of these atrocious bills, and our representative won't even give me the time of day. I have called her office, I have emailed her.
Ember voted for the first time in the November midterms.
Even if it feels useless, you should still vote. Otherwise, you're giving up.
Amy Cox isn't giving up either, even when things seem hopeless. This Democrat ran for the Ohio State House in a district she knew she could never win. She says the goal was to give voters an alternative.
I'm not trying to win this district because I can't win this district. It's just not possible. The district picked itself. They handed him this district. So we basically ran a race to educate voters on these state races.
There are about 119,000 residents in the district, but only a third cast their ballot in November.
This is my neighbor. She is a Republican, but she knows me, and as far as I know, she does support me, but she is very much a Republican. These folks down here, they're also red, but I don't bother them. They don't want to talk politics with someone like me.
Cox lost by 44 points against Republican incumbent Rodney Creech. But she continues to engage with voters.
Hi, Amy.
Hey there. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Been good. I stopped by to find out how you feel about the election.
You know, you and I have talked before. You know, in our county especially, it's a one real party. You know, and I'm a registered Republican, but I cross party lines to vote. I vote for the best person, not just the R or the D.
The Democratic Party of Ohio usually only helps finance the campaigns of candidates it feels have a chance of winning. It's to help unlikelier candidates that the former chairman of the party created a group called Blue Ohio.
If we can get to the point where we have thousands of members each pitching in a month, then every single person running in Ohio knows that when they run, they will have support. Not just $200 from us, but honestly, significant dollars that this year was around $5,000, but in a couple of years could be as high as 10 or 12.
Blue Ohio launched last summer and already has more than 1,000 members. Its goal is to give power back to the voters.
When they draw maps that guarantee most outcomes, their hope is that people don't run at all. They don't want voters to even have a choice. They don't want their incumbents to ever face accountability. So their whole goal is no one runs. So the reason we started Blue Ohio is to say, even though it's tough, it's really important that you run. It's really important that you hold an extremist accountable, that you point out what they're doing. And so we're proud that we're able to help all these people run.
Because without them running, it's a monopoly on information, and a monopoly leads to more and more extremism. Power with no accountability in the lame duck is that on steroids. Please go to your
Abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, voting rights, all are under threat in about half of the country. And while the focus is on Washington, D.C., fundamental rights are being decided at the local level.
That was Ohio, Democracy in Peril here on France 24, and one of the people behind that report, Fanny Allard, is still with us. Fanny, from what you've seen during your reporting on the ground, who is most affected by gerrymandering?
Well, truth is, every American is, considering districts are drawn with partisan goals and adding that today map makers have great numerical tools and surveys on how households vote. Most of the opposition to the party in power, whereas it's Republican in Ohio or Democrat in Maryland, considers their vote doesn't count, and we've seen it with Amber and her mother in the report. But I'd say people of color are particularly affected by gerrymandering, residential segregation, and racially polarized voting patterns, especially in southern states, means that targeting communities of color can be a very effective tool for creating advantages for the parties that control redistricting.
Fanny, we've seen in recent years that America has become a nation divided. Is the risk of something like gerrymandering that the electorate just becomes more polarized?
Yes, definitely. What's happening in Ohio is that because the legislative maps have been deliberately drawn so that many Republicans effectively cannot lose, the only contest most Republican incumbents need to worry about are the primaries. And the only way you lose in that primary is that a more extreme candidate of your own party says that you are too moderate, because during those primaries, it is the most intense partisans who show up and vote. So there is an incentive to be an extremist.
Well, Fanny Allard, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your report once again. If you want to watch Fanny's reports once more, you can do so on our website, france24.com. This is Reporters. Stay tuned to France 24.